and welcome to the Athlete Archives. Today, I'm going to discuss Herb Score. Herb was a pitcher for the Cleveland Indians and then the Chicago White Sox in the 1950s, and is most remembered for being hit in the face by a line drive off the bat of Gil McDougald. I will be joined by a friend of mine who grew up listening to Herb Score call Cleveland games on the radio. Brian is a Cleveland super collector of memorabilia and sports cards. Welcome to the show, Brian. So, Brian, do you currently live in Cleveland?
No, I'm in Columbus, but I'm from Cleveland. I was born and raised there. I moved to Columbus in 2003 or four, and so I've been here since. So I'm still just a diehard all the Cleveland sports.
So, Herb may be one of those guys that I'm sure we all kind of know somebody who's maybe a little bit accident prone. At the age of 3, was struck by a truck, breaking both of his legs. He missed a year of school with 10 months bedridden with rheumatic fever. And then he broke his ankle again in high school and then broke his collarbone or separated his collarbone when he was in the minor leagues, slipping on some grass. So maybe a bit of an inauspicious start to his career. Herb was playing outfield and found success quickly as a pitcher. He and his parents, or I'm sorry, he and his mother moved to Lake Worth, Florida after his parents were divorced. And it was there where he would become a high school baseball star. He had a cannon of an arm, but struggled with control. He had 6 no-hitters in high school, and led his school to their only state championship. And Brian, I'm sure you're a Bob Feller fan too.
Oh yeah, yeah. They call it a left-handed Bob Feller. It was just the same skill set. I mean, like you said, maybe struggle a little bit every now and then with control, but all those guys struggle a little bit with their control when you're throwing it that hard. But yeah, and we'll get to it, but I know he replaced Bob Feller in the rotation ultimately.
He definitely had a cannon. I wish that we had StatCast data to know just how hard of a thrower he was. And as we get into the actual incident, I would also be real curious to know how hard that line drive was.
Oh yeah.
You know, but we'll get there in a minute. So Herb, he definitely had a walk problem early on, and I'll show his minor league stats here. So in 1952, in 62 innings, he had 62 walks. And then they bounced him down to single A ball in Reading for 1953, where the control seemed to actually get worse. In 98 innings, he had 126 walks. You're not going to get very far in baseball walking guys at that rate.
No. He straightened it out for 54.
Right.
I believe.
And that's where he separated his collarbone was that season down at Reading. But thankfully he did figure something out. While the big league club was winning the American League that year, a hell of a year, I'm sure special to you. 111 wins in a 154 game season.
Yep, and that's it. I don't know what happened in that World Series. We don't need to really get into the World Series. It was one of the best regular seasons of all time. And that's it almost held him back. Maybe you're getting to what he did in '54 in the minor leagues. The Indians pitching staff led the league in ERA by almost a full run. I mean, they were 2.78. The league average was 3.72 in '54. And then, I mean, they led the league in even the more advanced metrics now that they didn't keep track of then, and they were all healthy.
So yeah, that's the key, isn't it?
For him in '54.
By all accounts, he was a very humble person. And the 1954 season, I had read multiple times where he gave all the credit to his pitching coach, Ted Wilkes, for helping him. And if we look at his stats for '54, in 251 innings, he had 140 walks. So he basically cut his walk rate by more than half. Where's the strikeout numbers?
330.
330 strikeouts.
Yeah.
251 innings.
I mean, that's, even today, even with, manipulating service time, whatever, you can imagine a pitcher now in AAA. I mean, they wouldn't even pitch that many innings. They'd be lucky to get half that many innings. But as good as the Indians were that year, if you got a pitcher like that in AAA, I can't imagine them staying down.
Yeah, exactly. Right. As soon as you have that kind of, I think that front half of the season, he should have been called up in
Yeah,
today's.
even like just the way the bullpens were used, then you would think of something like that this year. You'd say, all right, well, he's a starter long term, but for now, we could, who wouldn't want a left-handed arm like that to come out of the bullpen?
Yeah, no doubt. That was good enough for him to be named the minor league player of the year. And as we said, the Indians in '54 were the American League champs. And who was their rotation, Brian? Do you know offhand?
It was Early Wynn, Bob Lemon, Art Houtman, Mike Garcia, and Bob Feller. Feller was the fifth starter by then, but he still had a pretty good year.
Okay.
And the others, I mean, they all. I don't know that they missed more than a handful of starts, between them. So they were healthy. Again, the team ERA was 2.78 versus the league average is 3.72 that year. Uh, it was just such a good rotation, and they all pitched a lot of, it's obviously old school. They pitched a lot of innings, they pitched a lot of complete games, and uh, they just kind of churned through 1 through 5.
I don't know how old these guys were, if they were kind of on the tail end of their career or in their prime.
Well, Feller obviously was on the tail end. Lemon, um, Garcia, and Wynn, I think, were more in the middle. And Houtman, I think, had a good couple years. I think he's one of those guys that you never really heard of. He had a couple good years, and then I don't know, just flamed out. And maybe that's why they don't throw guys 250 innings anymore.
Yeah, there's a couple incidences of maybe some pitching abuse
Yeah,
back then. But in any case, obviously after that '54 season in the minor leagues, there's no way that he was going to not make the team in '55. And he didn't disappoint. The guy who struggled with walks just 2 years earlier ended up dominating the American League that rookie year. He broke Grover Cleveland Alexander's record for strikeouts by a rookie pitcher with 245. And I believe that is a record that still stands for the American League.
yeah. I think
Um,
Dwight Gooden caught him in what 84.
85-ish.
I think
Or
45, whatever his rookie year was.
yeah. And Herb did win Rookie of the Year. And again, the humble Herb score credited his pitching coach, Mel Harder. Uh, has a bit of fame in our Twitter group. Uh,
Well, he does, but he was a great pitcher himself, and he won over 200 games. He pitched for a lot of Indian teams that were sort of anonymous. I mean, obviously, like in the 20s, 30s, before the divisional playoffs, if you didn't win the pennant, you didn't really get any glory. And so a lot of people never heard of Mel Harder, but he was a great pitcher, and he was a pitching coach for a while after he retired. And he has some good faces on his cards.
uh, yeah, based on that '56 season, I'll show his statistics up on the screen, but he had a batting average against of 156, a league high of 263 Ks, an ERA of 166. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And this,
9.7 strikeouts per nine. He led the league. He had 11 complete games, which obviously it was different then. I think now they probably won 11 complete games in the majors last year.
right. Unfortunately for the Indians that year, in '55 and '56, they finished behind the Yankees, a perennial nemesis there. In 1956, the offseason, Joe Cronin from the Red Sox had offered Cleveland general manager Hank Greenberg $1 million for the rights to Herb score. And
Dr. Evil when he
$1 million.
so yeah, I mean, obviously, Greenberg and the Indians saw him as a cornerstone for what they were building, and I mean, how could you not agree based on his track record to that point?
Yeah, I mean, I think they probably saw it. It's you hear about it in football. The Packers went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, they had Feller from 36, 37 until 54. He pitched in 55, but 54 was, I think, really his last year in the rotation. They probably figured we've got another one.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it looked that way. Even at the start of 1957, he was off to an even better start. And unfortunately, on May 7th of 1957, against the arch rival New York Yankees at Cleveland Stadium, was when the tragedy occurred. So Hank Bauer started the game out with a 5-3 ground out, and then Gil McDougald stepped to the plate, second batter of the game, on a 2-2 count. Herb threw him a fastball that McDougald lined right back into Herb's face, unfortunately. And again, we don't have StatCast data. Who knows how hard the line drive was? But there are plenty of balls that these guys are hitting over 100 miles an hour today. We know up to 120 and more,
Sure, it was a fastball coming in. That those are the fastest ones going back out.
right? So I did some real embarrassingly simplified calculations. Ignoring wind resistance and deceleration of the ball at 100 miles an hour off the bat, I calculated that Herb had roughly 300 milliseconds before the ball hit him in the face. And that's just not that's just not much time to really do anything. In fact, I continued to kind of figure out what that actually means in real life. And scientists say that it takes about 150 to 300 milliseconds just to visually track a moving object. So by the time he figured out that the ball was coming at him, he had no time to do
Yeah,
anything.
it's
The ball
amazing.
hit
It
him.
doesn't happen more often.
Dude, I know. I want to get on that too. I want to touch on that because my son had a comebacker to the mound that hit the top of his head and took the little beanie thing on the top of the baseball hat off. It came
Wow.
back.
To your point on the timing, there's just no time to react, even to try and get lucky and throw your glove up. There's just time to process that.
No, and it's still happening today. I mean, probably every year somebody gets hit, but even like on the Braves, Jackson Stevens got hit uh, last year or the year before, square in the forehead. The ball bounced. I think the ball bounced into right field. I mean, it's just there's just no time to do anything.
Yeah.
Oh, right off Jackson Stevens. That ricochets into shallow right field. One run is in. Let's hope Jackson's all right. How in the world is he on his feet after that batted ball hit him on a line in the forehead?
With Herb in particular, I know Herb's delivery left him defenseless, and when he got hit, it hit him near the right eye. The ball bounced to third base. Vic Wertz caught the ball for the putout and ran to the mound, but stopped short when he saw the aftermath. And to McDougald's credit, after hitting the line drive, ran to the mound. He knew it was
Yeah.
serious. I know the ball hit Herb in the eye, broke his nose, broke his cheekbone, and basically immediately impacted the eyeball itself.
I know that McDougald said, I read he had said that if Herb Score couldn't play again, then he wasn't going to play again. Obviously, Score missed the rest of the season. I don't know if McDougald, I mean, maybe he just kind of figured if he doesn't come back the next year. But yeah, I mean, he was pretty, I think, which I think anyone would be pretty devastated by it.
Oh, I can't imagine the how he must have felt. I did read that he wanted to come out of the game. They continued the game, and his manager wouldn't let him come out of the game. Herb, incredibly, would recover much faster than I would have thought from an injury like that. He was back on the field, not playing, but back on the field shagging fly balls by the end of the season, which seems miraculous to me. And then back on the mound for 1958. The end of his career didn't go as well, and he himself was saying that his problems after the accident were not because of him being afraid of being hit again, but
Yeah.
he was suffering from arm issues.
Yeah, he tore a ligament in his arm. I'm cheating here. I wrote some things down too. In '58, when he came back, and I think that's just sort of been the legend in Cleveland that he was never the same after that. And kind of going to what you said about his humility, maybe he just didn't want to use that. But what he had said was he told Terry Pluto, who's a longtime Cleveland sports writer, author, that after he hurt his arm, he kind of changed his motion a little bit, and he kind of blames that for um, more than anything else for what sort of changed the shortened his career, derailed it, changed the trajectory, whatever you want to use. But I, I mean, obviously, I don't know whether that's his humility, not wanting to, um, admit that maybe I don't know how you couldn't be afraid of the same thing happening again. I mean, you know, I would think it would be interesting to know if there was any mental health involved or like any kind of therapy counts. I mean, I don't know how you get back on the mound after that.
Yeah, exactly. So I had listened to another podcast in preparation for this, and they were speculating that his elbow issues may have started because he changed his delivery to not leave himself in such a vulnerable position. These games just they weren't televised and they weren't archived, and
Right.
so you can't go back and look and
As I say,
see.
now someone could go back and
Yeah,
do a frame by frame analysis of it. And
yeah,
the other thing, when he was I think it was in Indianapolis, he became good friends with Rocky Colavito, um, and lifelong friends, and they were traded. I think within days of each other.
yeah. Yeah, they were roommates in the
Yeah,
minor league, and then continued that way into the major league level. I didn't grow up in the Cleveland area, but I guess Rocky Colavito was a huge fan favorite.
oh yeah. I mean, people, particularly my parents' age, they still bristle at you say Harvey Keene, like that's the first thing they think of.
He just
Um,
dismantled the
He wasn't a bad player, but yeah, I mean, he was a fan favorite. He was home run hitter. He was good looking. I guess good with the fans. So and that was now I think Cleveland fans are conditioned that for the most part, if a player gets too good, they're going to get traded because they're not going to re-sign them. But at the time, that wasn't the case. They just it was a baseball trade. I mean, Keene was a good hitter, and I think they just maybe underestimated the fan response.
You had touched on this earlier about the pitchers today still getting hit, and one of my favorite episodes to research and put together was on Ray Chapman, and obviously another Cleveland
Yeah,
Indian. And if you're not aware, Ray died after being hit in the head by a pitch from oddly enough, another Yankee was involved. It was Carl Mays. And it took over 50 years before batters were required to wear a helmet at the plate. And even then, there was some pushback for somehow unbelievably. Now it just seems outrageous to even think about going up to bat without a helmet on. But
oh yeah,
as I said, this past season, Ronald Acuna Jr. hit a ball 121 miles an hour. We have O'Neill Cruz, Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge. They've all hit balls 121 plus miles an hour.
yeah.
And I don't know what it's going to take for pitchers to wear some protective. I mean, gosh, I don't want them to wear a mask like a softball player or anything like that. But man, it just
Yeah, I mean the Indians even in 16 and 17, um, I think it was 2016. Carlos Carrasco got hit in the shin with a line drive in one of the last couple weeks of the season and broke his shin, missed the playoffs. And then in 27, I think it was 2017, Trevor Bauer got hit in the hand with a line drive, and I think sort of came back for the playoffs. I don't remember. I may have the years mixed up, but both of those guys, um, both got hit, hit with line drives, broke bones. It's you're close. You're
Yeah,
660.
it's ridiculous, really. I mean, certain things you're never going to be able to protect against. Charlie Morton got hit in the shin against the Dodgers and ended up breaking his leg the next inning when he came out after it had been fractured. But it's the head injuries
Yeah.
that scare me. And certainly, I think if you take a shot to the temple, I think that's the most dangerous. And I know that they have Kevlar inserts that they can put into the helmet. I'm sorry, into the hat that kind of at least kind of if you get hit there, it'll kind of
Absorb some of it.
yeah, or at least spread out the source of the impact. But
Yeah.
yeah, God, I hope we don't have another Chapman level kind of incident.
Yeah. Remember John
Um,
Olerud used to wear the batting helmet in the field.
oh, pardon.
John Olerud, first,
Yeah, Blue Jays.
yeah, and there was a story. I don't remember why he had, but there's a story where he had Ricky Henderson's in Toronto, and then again later with the Mets. And Ricky Henderson, looked at him. He said, "You play first base? You wear a helmet?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I played with a guy I think in Toronto who did that too." And Olerud said, "Yeah, yeah, that was me."
uh, yeah, just it'll take some time for people to get used to it, but
Yeah.
man, I mean, if there's one thing that we've learned from the last decade with the NFL, you've got to protect that brain.
Oh yeah.
Um, so before we get into his announcing career, uh, let's talk about his baseball cards.
I have a couple. Most of what I collect is older. So to me, Herb Score, that's kind of a modern era, which obviously it isn't. But his rookie card from 56 tops. What was that?
Yeah, that's a beautiful. Oh, see, look at that delivery.
Yeah,
That is a great,
yeah. And it's
great
the
image.
cards themselves are fun. That's back when they had the cartoons on the back, and I
Yep,
don't know Blair there, but
yep.
yeah, I mean it's a great card. I like the set. You got a nice up close picture. You got that the action shot. And then I have this is I don't know what year, but Topps Archives where they do re-releases. Um, trying to
Yeah, that's
yeah,
autographed.
yeah. So it was an autograph that released with the archive set. So it's a reprint of the card, obviously, but through Topps. And then this is his Wiener card, the Wiener the World Awaited.
The Wiener the World Awaited. Is that Khan's card hard to find?
Um, I don't know that they're difficult to find. I wasn't specifically looking for it, and I came across it. I think like any of these, especially like the food releases, a lot of it depends on the condition. So
Yeah.
some of the like the dandy potato chips cards that were literally packed in a bag of grease. So some of those are harder with based on
Yeah.
condition, or the Hires root beer cards that have the tabs that you could tear off and send in to get um, some kind of premium they would send you back.
Do you
But
know where those Khan's cards were they packaged in with the hot dogs?
yeah, I think you get the pack of what 8 hot dogs, and I think these were probably underneath.
Okay.
Obviously not contacting with the hot dogs, but between laminated in the plastic, you probably peeled off the top, and the card was sitting in there.
I like the card, and the thing that for me that just adds more to the card is the tagline at the bottom.
Oh yeah, yeah. The Wiener the World Awaited,
Uh,
which is a pretty, I guess, a pretty good compliment. You'd like to think that you were the only one in the set. It loses some of its meaning when if you've got 100 other players in the set that you think it was just me that they were waiting for. But
yeah. Well, he definitely has a soft spot in my heart now. I don't have any herb score cards, but I'm definitely gonna add him to my eBay search.
yeah, and obviously they're
Illustration.
not particularly expensive, relatively compared to other cards from that set, other cards from, um, to your point, he had a couple great years, but he's not a Hall of Famer. So it's it's nice collecting some of those kinds of players where
Yeah, I've got a little. So my collection is small by standards of a lot of the guys that you and I know. Um, but I've got some oddballs in there. I've got the 75 Herb Washington that because I did because I did
no
an
at bats
episode on him.
and
I've got the player run for Fidrich. I've got the Ray Caldwell from the 1915 Cracker Jack set.
oh, see, I need um I've got the 1920 Indians cards. I have cards for everyone who played in that series that has a card in a Cleveland uniform, and Caldwell doesn't have one in
Right.
a Cleveland uniform. And I'm kind of torn because it's such a big part of that team,
Hmm.
to just leave him out. But I've looked at the Cracker Jack card before, and if he was in a Cleveland uniform, it'd be different. But I don't know that as an exception. I don't. I haven't pulled the trigger yet.
Yeah, and just to keep going on this path, I really came to appreciate and have a soft spot for Chapman.
Yeah,
And he just does not have, I mean, he's got the sporting news thing, but like unfortunately, there are no Cracker Jacks of him. There's no, oh, you're pulling something out.
yeah. No, this is
Yeah,
the closest I've been able to get is the
blanket.
blanket, because there are a handful of those like the 1917, the different retail releases, basically some of the chocolate cards, but they're so hard to find, and even
Yeah,
if you do, it's $3,000-4,000,
yeah,
and so it's almost it's not unattainable, but it's pretty tough. I mean, I can't afford one, and I've been looking. I can't find one anyway. I'm looking
yeah.
for it, but I know if I find it, it's probably still going to be a little bit out of reach. So, let's say Ray Caldwell. We're talking about guys getting hit by things on the mound. Ray Caldwell fits in there.
I didn't, so that's why I have his Cracker Jack, is I did an episode on him.
Yeah,
I just happened to be listening to sports talk radio one day, and they said today on this day in 1920, Ray Caldwell was hit by lightning, got up and finished the game, and I was like, "What?" So that started me on that tangent. I was like, why don't I know this story? Well, how come I've never heard of this guy? And yeah, so
he
I became a,
also, I guess you probably know this too. He had when he came to Cleveland, he Chris Speaker had him like on a program. He asked why his contract didn't have anything about drinking. He was an alcoholic, and Speaker said, you can pitch, then you go out and drink for 2 days, and then you have to. I forget what it was, but there basically was a concession to it. So, what you're gonna do, just do it like this, and as long as you're ready to pitch.
yeah, actually, Speaker wrote into the contract that he had to basically drink the day after pitching. So he was basically trying to get him to get it out, go and I don't want to see you at the ballpark. Like after the day you pitch, spend that day drinking, and 2 days later I want you back. And that unfortunately for Caldwell, that was his. I mean, that was his Achilles.
Yeah,
A lot of guys back then were hard drinkers, and
yeah.
yeah, but yeah, he's a great story. There's so many good ones. So after Herb finished playing, he had a long run with Cleveland Indians TV and then radio. So he was an announcer. I think he was the color guy on TV from 1964 to 1967, and then he became the radio guy from 68 for 30 years until the World Series against the Marlins in 1997.
Yeah.
So you obviously grew up with him. I would love to hear any stories you might have about the impact that he's had on you.
I mean, so he started, you said saying 64, basically from 64 to 97, he was a few years TV and then radio. Joe Tate, who's another like a legendary Cleveland announcer, he did the Cavs games. He did some TV for the Indians over the years. And I mean, his line was Herb Score has seen more bad baseball than anybody anyone in the history of the game, because in the 30 years that he was a broadcaster, they had 6 seasons above 500.
Oh,
Or no, it was for the first 30 years, like from 64 to 94, and then 94 until he retired in 97. They had some great teams, but I mean, as a kid, I mean, I'm 50, so I was born in 73. In the 80s, games, I think they started at 7:30 then. And when I was young, I would get in bed and listen to the game on the radio. And I never made it up all the way, but I just driving in the car or in the summer, it's kind of like a soundtrack.
yeah.
I remember when the Indians were on the West Coast, trying to stay up late enough just to like be able to hear an inning or two. And there was a local sports legendary guy, Pete Franklin was like one of the first sports talk guys in the country. He was kind of obnoxious, and that was his shtick, and he would hang up on you and yell at you. And I remember like listening to him trying to get through until those games started. But he was, kind of like his humility. It didn't bother him. He took the same approach. He never really got on the team. And this is when they were bad because they made bad decisions, not when they were bad because they couldn't afford to sign players or keep players, or there was no competitive imbalance then other than of the Indians' own creation. So it was nice, I think, that he got to hear that his last few years he did get to, he called Tony Pena hit a big game-winning home run in the first playoff game in '95. I think it was 15th, 16th inning. He called the last out in the game where the Indians clinched the division. It was a pop-up to Jim Thome against the Orioles. So he got to make some big calls. But Tom Hamilton, who's the announcer now, he and everyone in Cleveland loves him. It's not Herb Score's fault. It's not Score's fault that teams are no good. I think everyone likes their announcers if they get to hear exciting things.
Yeah.
The Indians, they haven't won a World Series. They've had a lot of good baseball over the last 20 years or so, and so a lot of everyone loves Tom Hamilton because he got this call and he gets excited. And
here it comes, a swing and a smash to first by the diving Vaughn, down the right field line, kicks into the corner. Ramirez on his way to second, head first slide, safe, and in to score is Jimenez. And another hustle double, right over the bag at first. Now Hosey and Anderson square off. They're fighting. They're swinging. Down goes Anderson. Down goes Anderson.
Herb Score didn't have a lot of that to get excited about. He kind of told a story. He has New York accent that sometimes you weren't sure what he was saying. Sometimes like he would mix up innings. He would, not to the extent of like a Harry Carey, but they were in Detroit and he thought they were in Chicago, or he wasn't paying attention on a play and he had to like ask whoever they didn't really do play-by-play in color. They always sort of alternated innings.
Yeah.
But it's just baseball's every day. Joe Tate did the Cavs, great announcer. Most of those games are always on TV, so you don't listen as much. Football, obviously, there's 16 games a year, maybe more if you root for a team that makes the playoffs sometimes. But for my lifetime, it's pretty much been 16 games a year. But baseball, it's 162 games, and especially back in the 80s, they weren't all on TV. Most of them weren't. I think maybe you got 20 or 30. So that's how you followed it. And it was the voices. I still remember some of the commercials even. So it's weird, I guess, having an attachment to someone who, in theory, brought me misery. Like we're talking about the Browns. Would you go back to the same restaurant for lunch every Sunday if it was no good? I mean, I listened to the same shitty baseball on the radio and tried to get to hear a couple innings in Seattle when the team was probably 40 and 60 at that time. And so I don't even know why I did it, but it
They were your team.
They're my team, and he was the voice. And I
Yeah,
like listening on the radio. I mean, I wish I could sync it up better sometimes.
that's the only saving grace for Apple TV broadcast games, is that if your team plays on Apple TV, they have a way that you can sync your local radio broadcast
Oh, really?
with their video, and that's
Huh.
awesome. Because we have
Yeah.
a great guy here, Ben Ingram in Atlanta, he's just phenomenal. He and Joe Simpson do the radio now, and man, that's if I could do that, I would be doing that for every broadcast. Um, but I did see that the Indians, it was WWE, that apparently had some massive 50,000 watt station. So
Yeah.
I guess they had quite the reach.
That was their tagline, was 38 states and half of Canada, the 50,000-watt superstation. Um, and there's a story, Joe Tate, when he was doing, maybe that must have been a radio game. I think they were in Seattle and it was raining. And so it was late. It was probably 1, 2 in the morning in Cleveland. And they said, anyone who's listening to the radio, send in a postcard. Whoever's the furthest from Cleveland gets. I don't know what they gave them, but they said they got postcards from, I want to say, St. Croix in the Virgin Islands,
Wow.
other places. So, and I don't know if it was to the extent of like the Braves on TBS or the Cubs on WGN, where there are people who are fans of those teams because they live somewhere where there wasn't baseball.
Yeah.
But I don't know that there are people in I don't know if the Guardians have a following in St. Croix now, or if even some of the more upstate New York or northern PA, where it was probably picked up and they don't necessarily have a local team. I don't know if the people who listened, but they could. It was
Yeah.
it definitely got there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So after he left, I don't know why he retired in 97, but maybe it was just time. But in 1998, he was in a bad car wreck. I'm
Yeah.
sure you know all about that. I think he pulled out in front of a truck. I think he was in the hospital for a while.
Yeah, I think at least a month. So I was looking at that today too. And ultimately he was cited for running a stop sign.
Just to add insult to injury, he
Yeah,
got a ticket for it.
Yeah,
So,
you think that would, that he learned the lesson enough, but
yeah. And then he had a stroke in 2002. After pneumonia and a hospital stay, he ended up passing away in November of 2008 at the age of 75.
after the accident, he threw out. I think on his opening day. I think opening day in '99. So he came back. He was able to, recover enough to, get out and just throw the opening pitch. But yeah, I mean, it was. I'm not sure what he did after. I think he stayed in Cleveland. I think he's buried in Cleveland. I think I saw.
Oh, okay. So he's still there today.
Yeah.
Brian, are there any big radio calls by Herb that jump out to you as most memorable?
I mean, the clinching game in '95, just to me, because after I remember sitting in college, I think it was maybe even a Saturday night, it might have actually been my birthday, September 7th. And I was watching the game, and there was a party going on in my apartment. I was like going back and forth, sitting in my room watching, and that was like I still remember a pop up. Jim told me, who played third base at the time.
Mesa delivers. Little tap up in the air, third base side. Waiting is Tomey. Foul territory, the game is over. And the Indians have won the divisional title. Indian fans have waited 41 years. And now they can really cheer.
But there's a home run that Tony Pena hit against the Red Sox in Game 1 of the division series that year.
Tony Pena, 3 balls, no strikes. A long drive, left field, way back. That is gone, a home run. The Indians have won it in the 13th inning. as Tony Pena circles the bases. He's got his arms thrown up in the air. He is really excited. The entire Indian dugout waiting for him at home plate. Tony Pena on a 3-0 pitch in the 13th inning hits the home run, and the Indians win 5-4.
But even I was reading his last call, he signed off after it was Game 7 of the '97 World Series, which kind of like the '54 World Series we don't really talk about. But if we were to talk about it, it was sort of a humble, sign off. Just, you've been great to me. I hope you're as great to whoever sits in this chair after me. Final score: Marlins 4, Indians 3. I blacked it out after that, but yeah, I mean, which is a shame. Out of all those years, it took him until his last 2 or 3 years to really have those kinds of signature calls.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And again, true to his nature, the humility that he ended that final broadcast with. I did hear that myself.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. And maybe I'll get you on. It's odd that, I've gone through and I look at some of the guys that I've done these episodes on, and there's an inordinate number of Cleveland guys involved.
Well, we have a colorful history, even though we may not have a lot of wins, but we got a lot of good stories, I guess.
All right. Well, thanks, man.
All right. Thank you.
I'm going to leave you with this video segment archived from the National Baseball Hall of Fame. It's an interview by Bob Wolf in 1959 of Herb Score during pregame batting practice. Wolf gives Herb the mic and asks him to evaluate Rocky Colavito, and you can see how comfortable he is with a microphone and how easily he can talk about the game, foreshadowing his long career in broadcasting. Thank you for your time. Take care.
Hi, everybody. Bob Wolf speaking, along with Herb Score of the Cleveland Indians. Herb Score is the roommate of Rocky Colavito, and Rocky is the roommate of Herb Score, looking at the other way. Herb, I guess you fellows are more than roommates. You're real close friends, have been for many years, isn't that
That's right, Bob. I think we're more like brothers than we are friends, because we've been together a long time, and even during the wintertime, we stay pretty close together. It's a real good relationship.
Herb, Rocky has just stepped in the batter's cage, so you take over the microphone and tell our viewers a little about Rocky's batting style, okay?
Fine, Bob. Well, Rocky stands about midway back in the batter's box. He has a rather closed stance, and he doesn't stride quite as far as he once did, which probably has helped make him a better hitter. If you notice, while he's swinging here in batting practice, that ball he just hit was outside, and he just went right into the ball and hit it to right field. I think one of the things that has really helped Rocky is his ability to learn to wait on the ball, which most young ball players have a tendency to be anxious, and that was Rocky's problem. Now, if you'll notice, he has very quick hands, and that has really made him a better hitter, waiting on the ball. He now realizes that he has real good, quick hands, and that is why he's able to wait longer and hit that curveball better now. Rocky was always a real good fastball hitter, and he still is today. But I would venture to say that most of his home runs now come off the breaking ball, because he sees more of them, and he just learned to hit them and wait on a ball. Right there is a good example. He hit that ball, I don't know how far, a long way, about 350, 360 feet, and he just had a nice, easy, relaxed swing on it. There's another one that was way out over the plate, and he hit it to deep left center field. In fact, it went in the seats out there. A real good hitter. One of the things I think about Rocky, and I think this is interesting to young ball players as well as anybody else, is his determination and confidence. That's actually what's made Rocky the hitter he is. A few weeks ago, Rocky had a little bad streak, and he was 0 for 18. And I'd see him after the game. He'd come into the room, and he'd say, "Well, Roomie," he says, "I'll get him tomorrow." I have never seen Rocky discouraged or down. And it happens to all of us. I know I'm the supreme pessimist of our room, and he's the optimist. Rocky will say a day of a game, "Well, I'm going to go out. I feel good today. I think I'll get a few hits." I'll say, "Well, I hope we win." And he more or less figures he's going to do it, or I just say to myself, "I hope we can do it." Real good, determined hitter. Rocky has many different mannerisms. You'll see him in the batting circle, or before he gets up at bat, stretching and putting the bat behind his head and stretching his muscles. And just a real determined baseball player. I think